Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. I've read this book quite a few times, but it just doesn't have the same impact of what some of Matthew Stover's other novels have in the expanded universe. I like the framing story. I like some of the action that goes on. But honestly, if you wanted it to be a tense thriller, they should have gone more with an unknown cast of characters with Luke Skywalker on this suicide mission to Mindor. Because having Wedge and Hobby and Wes, Jansen and Han and Leia and Lando all show up in the system, you knew that they weren't going to wind up getting killed off because they're still there for later novels down the timeline. It just cut the tension too much. Also, the POV parts on Lord Shadow Spawn, or Chronal as he's also known, they just didn't really trip my trigger. They tried to be dark and full of pathos, but I really didn't care for them. And in fact, most of the time when I reread that book, I just skip those parts entirely. So, I think there was a great premise there. I love the parallels with Revenge of the Sith, but overall, I think that it is way overhyped. Still, a good read, but way overhyped. Number 3, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. It's a decent book. The action's fun. Getting to see the POV of the bad guys isn't a bad deal. But honestly, it just didn't do it for me. The other books in the series, I've only reread, I've only read those books once. I've reread Path of Destruction a few times, and it just feels kind of lacking for me as a reader. Darth Bane is not a very interesting character. I mean, he starts off kind of engaging, and then he just kind of goes downhill as far as how interesting he is as a character moving throughout the series. I know a lot of people love these books, and like I said, I've read and enjoyed the first book several times. I've only read the other ones once each, but I just think that they're overhyped overall. This next one, again, in these picks that have been pretty controversial, I'm going to go with Outbound Flight by Timothy Zahn. I like the concept of the outbound flight. I like a lot of the things that take place within the book, but where it falls down for me is that it's an attempt to whitewash Grand Admiral Thrawn. He works best as a villain, in my opinion, and trying to make him this man who's making a deal with the devil to try to protect the galaxy as a whole, it just doesn't do it for me. Really interesting concepts in there. I like the interaction with the Jedi on board Outbound Flight with Sabayoth. I thought that was really interesting. I liked the parts with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Thought that was good. But it just doesn't do it for me in the long run because it is trying to whitewash Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I think he works best as a villain. This next one is sure to turn some heads, as it's many people's all-time favorite expanded universe novel. And that book is Darth Plagueis by James Luceno. Honest to goodness, this is one book that people have raved and raved and raved about, and I like James Luceno's work in a lot of different books throughout the expanded universe and in the canon. I really think he's a talented author. I really enjoy what he's got to do, but I just find the book Darth Plagueis boring. So boring. I don't get involved with the Sith alchemy parts of it. I think the scary businessman part of it and the secret cabals and stuff, it's interesting, but it just doesn't move fast enough for me to find an engaging book to go back to and reread. I've only read it through in its entirety once. I went back to do a reread just recently, and I was bored. And I stopped about halfway through because I just really wasn't engaged with the story. So, those are my 5 expanded universe books that I think are overrated. Now for the book series that I feel is the most overrated in the expanded universe. That is Legacy of the Force series. It starts out really strong. with Betrayal by Aaron Alston. I thought that was a fantastic book and an excellent start to a new chapter in the expanded universe after the Vong War and the Swarm War. But about the time we get to Inferno, the 6th book in the series, you could see that the authors were really treading water. So many of the same events took place over the next 3 books that it was ridiculous. Darth Caedus, Jason Solo, who was a fantastic character to begin with, becomes a joke. You've got Jedi Special Forces teams that are taking him on. You've got Luke Skywalker, who's basically beating him to a pulp and decides to walk away from him in Inferno. And then the most grievous of all instances is in the book Revelation. Oh boy. When the Mando Mercs had the opportunity to take out Darth Caedus, and they chose instead to kneecap him. That was the nail in the hammer for me in that series. Invincible tried to salvage some of the stuff, but I feel like Invincible should have been another 400 pages longer if it was going to try to adequately tie up everything. It just did not work for me, which is a shame because I thought that the first half, from the beginning with Betrayal all the way up to Sacrifice, I felt that those were pretty solid novels and an interesting take on a person falling to the dark side who had once been a hero. But the second half of that series drug it down to make it the most overhyped series of the expanded universe. Well, that's my list. Tell me what you think in the comments, and check out my list of the 5 most underrated books in the expanded universe. Thanks for watching.